Hi, everyone. This is AJ Schneider from Loyalty 360, welcoming you to another edition of our Leaders in Customer Loyalty Industry Voices podcast. In these episodes, we talk to the leading agencies, technology partners, and consultants in brand loyalty about the technology, trends, and best practices driving unique experiences, engagement, and ultimately customer loyalty. This episode is part of our 2026 Trend Series, where we're talking about what patterns and best practices we're likely to see in the upcoming year. Today, we're speaking with Luke Kline, founding marketer at Hightouch and the author of the newsletter Lifecycle Leaders. Hightouch is a composable CDP and AI marketing platform that empowers companies to activate their data warehouse to power personalized marketing and business operations. Welcome, Luke. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
No, this is awesome. The timing is great. We're at the beginning of the year and we are working on our look back at 2025, but also at what trends are coming in 2026. And so I wanted to start right there. When you look back at the previous year, what do you think the emerging consumer trends and behaviors or market conditions, which ones have had the biggest influence on how loyalty strategies have been designed or evolved over the course of the year?
Yeah, I think a big one that comes top of mind, which is kind of all over the industry and hasn't really changed, is just like customer acquisition costs are always going up. They're not never getting cheaper, and also being beholden to some of these walled garden ad platforms, trying to figure out what are these other levers that we can do to kind of optimize that funnel, especially with your own first party data. Like loyalty programs are huge there, and it's like every single company is pretty much investing in one these days, regardless of if they call it that or not. It's just like a huge competitive advantage because there's things you can do with your first party data that nobody else can do because it's very much tied to your product. So, the data you have as Starbucks is going to be different than the data you have as Dunkin' Donuts to build those personalized experiences and just like the moat like things that keep customers coming to you.
You mentioned a couple of companies right there with the coffee companies that I think are interesting in from a trends perspective. A lot of folks are consumers are looking at costs
Hmm.
and the rising costs that are all around them, and now all of a sudden people are having to budget and so on. So I feel like lots of consumers are using loyalty programs more so than they have in the past
Hmm.
to kind of offset their costs. Again, you used the example of two of the largest, coffee companies, um, you know, to get that extra free coffee because now they don't have to pay for it. Coffee is
Hmm.
expensive at this point. Are you seeing that throughout, all of the clients that you have and sort of the industry data that you're looking at? Is that a legitimate trend?
I would say I maybe don't have access to that data, but just anecdotally, a lot of conversations with people working in MarTech and in Lifecycle. There is a very big emphasis today on keeping the loyalty of like you don't want your customer to be purchasing from, the other three coffee brands if you're Starbucks. You want to be capturing that purchase every week, especially something as frequent as coffee, where people go weekly or every day. It's like, hey, what kind of incentive can we put in place to reward this type of loyalty so that the next time they're going to purchase coffee, it's like it's a no-brainer to go to Starbucks or it's a no-brainer to go to Dunkin's. And usually there's like whatever the math is that they've modeled out where they can still be profitable as a business, but also reward the customer. You have things like, the double star days or like the specific offer at a section of the US for a drink. There's just like really advanced and sophisticated things you can do. And consumers like that. It's like I log into my coffee app and it's like Starbucks knows me. I was already going to buy a peppermint mocha today and now they're offering me double stars for it.
And as expensive as they are, I feel like consumers appreciate the fact that, if I was going to buy five coffees in a week, now I'm getting five coffees for less
Hmm.
money, and that's great for my pocketbook based on all the other costs that are going up and so on. So no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. They're not chasing the people who, like myself, are probably going to be making coffee at home.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And as much as I try to make coffee at home, the coffee companies still have it better. I can't replicate it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a
but
sucker for a good cup of coffee.
Yeah. And so from an administration standpoint, when again, I'm sure as you're taking on new clients and looking at their current programs and their models and so on, are there some things that stand out when you're kind of reviewing somebody's program that says, okay, based on all the change that's happened, and all the technology that's coming or beginning to be in place, this program needs an overhaul. Like, what are some of the flags that would tell you we need to redo things here?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that come to mind. One is like, what are the comms that we're sending the customer? Like, where does our customer live? Are we a mobile app and we're only sending them emails? It's like there might be a bit of a disconnect there. How easy is it for customers to redeem the rewards? There was a large retailer I was looking at a while back, which I'm a big fan of. And one of the things that always stood out to me is uh, anytime you wanted to redeem like your points balances, like you had to go to the website, then you had to redeem a gift card, and then you had to plug in that gift card directly into wherever you were checking out. And then you could only redeem it in like 5, 10, $20 quantities. And since then, they've completely overhauled the entire balance system. So now it's like you just apply the amount that you want at the checkout. So like it makes it seamless for the customer. Also, tying in things like the reward anchors, how much exactly you're going to benefit as the consumer if you make this purchase. How is it, moving you to that next tier? How is it giving you more points that you can redeem? And then I think the probably the most important one of this, the biggest trend we're seeing across the industry is just like how you can use personalized experiences to actually drive lifts for those core use cases. And when I think about lifecycle teams today, there's a couple of big ones that come to mind. Upsells and cross sells. Like if you're a quick serve restaurant like a Burger King or a McDonald's, is like how can you increase that order size? How can you increase the frequency from which people come to purchase with you? And there's a lot of interesting things they do around there. Um, Another one is just like how you think about personalization. An example I love to use because I think Amazon's really good at this is like, okay, if somebody abandons your cart, obviously you as the retailer, you want to win them back. You want to get that checkout. And there's ways to, use your data to give the customer a compelling reason to purchase. And where a lot of brands stop is they'll say, hey, you left this item in your cart, would you like to complete your purchase? And you as a customer, you left that item in your cart. That information is fresh on your mind. You did that for a reason. What you need is like an actual compelling decision to purchase. And the companies that nail it, and this is something we help with a lot at Hightouch, is helping you activate that really nuanced, difficult to access data. And that could look like, hey, would you like to complete your purchase? If you don't order in the next 24 hours, it won't be here in time for Christmas. Okay, now there's a real cost to you as the consumer if you don't make that purchase. Or, hey, the items usually sell out in this amount of time. So, like this deep data that's usually inaccessible, that's what we do at High Touch is we make it accessible for marketers so they can actually use it in a really personalized and valuable way for the customer.
One of the other things I think that's probably part and parcel to what you were just describing, and maybe some of the other strategies that you mentioned earlier, is this concept of time to value and
Hmm.
how what we've seen over time, and it has everything to do, I think, with consumer attention spans and the way that, this need for instant gratification and so on and so on,
Hmm.
coupled with the economic reason for wanting to get something for less money because you've got this loyalty program. How is High Touch helping its customers and ultimately their customers kind of reduce that time to value so the experience for the customer is even better?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of good answers to this question, but one is just like you think about a traditional marketing team. It's like marketing teams have no shortage of great ideas. Usually, the number one blocker for marketing teams, and this is what we hear over and over again from our customers, is like, "Hey, I can't access the data. The tools don't support the use cases I want to do." We actually published a great report on this, analyzing like just tons of different conversations with customers. And marketers, like they want to move fast, they want to deliver value to customers, but they're locked in, these legacy systems and platforms that were really built for yesterday. And consumers act very differently today. So one is just like the time to value, for a marketer to go from idea from campaign of like, hey, I know, this specific audience, they'll really resonate with this offer. It'll be really valuable for them and it'll also move the needle for the business. It's like they can go into the Hightouch platform, they can self-serve, they can build that audience in minutes and they can push it to whatever marketing destination they need, whether that's an ad they want to run, whether that's an email they want to send, SMS message, loyalty offer. Um, whatever that may be. And then the other thing is just like uncovering like new opportunities for the customer that you wouldn't have otherwise known. Like again, to the point I said before, a lot of marketers like they're only acting on like a little sliver of the data that they know about the customer. And with High Touch, we give you access to the full breadth of the customer, like every single data point, because we plug directly into um, your existing data infrastructure. So wherever that data is across your organization, it's like the marketing team can use all of it. That's everything from, data science models and predictions about, what the customer is most likely to purchase next based on what they've previously purchased. Custom proprietary things that a lot of companies don't even talk about. That's like really unique to their business. So I'd say the two main ones is like time to value if you're a marketer to actually execute and deliver value to your customers. And the other is just being able to do new things that wasn't possible with yesterday's technology.
And I don't know if this what I'm about to ask you complicates that issue, but and maybe it comes down to the definition of value, I suppose. But
Hmm.
um, one of the things that's become more important to customers is this sort of sense of community and identity
Hmm.
and belonging to this sort of group, this experience that is
Yeah.
shared by the other people in the loyalty program. Are you seeing some interesting and effective ways to kind of build that in to the value proposition, and I guess be able to measure it and act on that data that you were just describing?
Yeah, like I'll give you a great example because I just published a newsletter on this recently, and I think they do it better than anyone. And it's not quite like a loyalty program, but it very much ties into this point. But Spotify, everyone knows Spotify, everyone uses Spotify, and what is the thing they do at the end of the year every year? You get Spotify Wrapped. And it very much plays on this idea of you were talking about of like one, the customer wants to belong to something that another company's not going to replicate. It wants they want to be have something, valuable that's unique to them. What is more unique to you than your music you listen to all year? And the thing that Spotify nails that a lot of brands like misunderstand is Spotify takes all of that data that they collect on the customer all throughout the year, what albums you listen to, what artists you listen to, your trends, your minutes, all of that. And they crunch all of those numbers. Just it's kind of wild if you actually look into to some of it, but they repackage it not in a way to, run, drive usage or whatever. They deliver it in a way that it is a product for the customer. So like you, AJ, me, Luke, I received this special one-to-one thing that's like deeply and innately tied to like my emotional being because it's music and it's like it's different from every other, million other Spotify users. It's a unique one-to-one thing to me and a lot of brands it's obviously not going to be a Spotify wrapped, but it's like okay, how do you take that data on the consumer and how do you make it valuable and productize it for them in a unique experience that like nobody else can replicate? And I'm an Apple Music user. So every year at the end of the year, I look at everyone from Spotify. I'm like, man, I almost want to switch to Spotify for that. I haven't yet, but I'm always like, I miss out because Apple's is truthfully much worse than Spotify's. Um, and I think the question you have to be asking yourself as a brand is, okay, how do we do Spotify Wrapped? Because a lot of companies do that. It's okay, how do we get that same emotional wrapped like experience for our customers? Not thinking in terms of Spotify wrapped necessarily, but like what is something wrapped like that we could do? Maybe it's not looking backwards at what the customers did, but like what is that thing that we have in our data that the other brand doesn't have? And like the loyalty programs, like the best ones in the world. It's like that's what they get right.
You mentioned, interestingly, maybe this is a little bit of a sidetrack here, but you mentioned before you used the example of Spotify that it wasn't, you didn't necessarily consider that to be a loyalty program in and of itself.
Mhm.
Um, why would you say that that's not a loyalty program in and of itself?
I guess because loyalty programs is usually like, an exchange between the brand and the consumer that like both parties are aware of. It's like, hey, you sign up for this program, you're going to get rewards. Like,
Hmm.
there's that doesn't really exist in Spotify today, and yet you as the customer, it's like you still get a giant reward at the end of the year.
No, it's interesting, and I was about to use the same example you did, Spotify versus Apple, and
Hmm.
I was just going to make the argument simply, and I totally get what you're saying about this sort of the exchange, right, between the consumer and the company, but I was going to make the argument that if you as a company, if there was a competitor out there that a consumer could potentially use their services instead of
Hmm.
yours, that something like the Spotify Wrap thing
Yeah.
is in fact a loyalty program for that very reason. Because
Yeah, exactly. A
yeah,
lot of like loyalty programs and the things that are solving for retention, stickiness with the customer, staying top of mind, they're not always called loyalty programs, but it's like the thinking and the use cases you're solving as a business are still the same, whether it's a loyalty program or not. And it's like that specific use case, it's like it does so much for them. It takes months for them to develop that campaign. And it's like you look at the value they get on social media of just people, everyone, hey, here's my wrapped, here's my wrapped, here's my wrapped. And then also like you, Spotify, I mean, you as a customer looking forward all year to, oh, I know on this specific day I'm going to get my wrapped. Like that's just a reason to keep using the product all year.
yeah, for sure. No, it's fascinating, and particularly with companies, I imagine like Spotify, are probably using at this point some AI tools to
Hmm.
make all that happen. And so we'd be remiss, I think, in this case, if we didn't chat a little bit about AI. As you see AI building momentum, maybe with things like that product or others, are there some loyalty program specific use cases that you think are maturing
Hmm.
and becoming sort of standard for companies?
Yeah, the big one, and I've heard this like over and over the past couple of weeks, just as part of the newsletter, just meeting with people in the space is trying to figure out how they can integrate agents into the entire loyalty lifecycle marketing workflow. Because you can't really, loyalty is powered by lifecycle marketing teams, the people running these owned channels like email, SMS, in-app. And one of the things we hear again and again is like, okay, in order to go from a campaign idea to actual execution, was literally just talking with someone today who works at one of the largest Fortune 500 companies in the world. Um, and she was telling me it takes probably 3 weeks to go from campaign to execution. There's all of these approvals. Legal has to approve the brand and the creative and the offers and everything, all these amounts. And um, one of the things that we're very bullish on at Hightouch is this idea of an agentic marketing platform where you as a lifecycle marketer can 10x your output because you have individual specialized agents overseeing kind of each part of that traditional workflow. So instead of you as a marketer having to go draft up the custom HTML for an email, now you're managing an agent to do that instead of you as a marketer, having to rack your head about what audience should I send to this week. Now you have an agent that can analyze all of your customer data and make recommendations for you based on the campaign to potentially match audiences to offers. Now you as a lifecycle marketer can get immediate approval because your legal team has already uploaded all of their brand guidelines and the agent can compare your creative and content against that. And suddenly, these things that were really hard to do, you can supercharge your entire lifecycle team. Like imagine a giant enterprise company like a Netflix or a Spotify, where each one of their existing marketers today now has an army of AI agents under them. And it's like a really exciting future.
But it's not. I have to ask the question. So the way that you frame that, it's not replacing
No,
the people who are doing the work today. It's just adding horsepower to what they're already doing.
no, yeah, that is very much the mindset of us at High Touch is like, how can we supercharge marketers? How can we give them more tools? And truthfully, like if you're a company thinking about, okay, how can I, replace headcount with AI, I think you're kind of missing something in that underneath every metric, underneath every needle, it's like there's a person moving that. And I think we've seen it again and again. It still needs, human creativity, human overseer driving it. If you go into an AI without a goal or objective, it's like you're just going to get the average. But if you have a great marketer over great technology, it's like we forget this is that great technology doesn't work without great people.
Right.
You need
Right.
great people to oversee the technology. So yeah, our mindset here at High Touch is very much it's like how can we enable marketing teams to do more? And it's like, okay, we already have if we already have a great marketer who's already doing great work, it's like, okay, how could we clone more of that person? How can we make him do or her do more? Not, okay, we have an AI that can just replace this person. It's like you should be thinking about that person like upscaling, going beyond the organization if, he or she is providing that much value, not just like trying to replace them with an AI button.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you probably answered it. I was going to ask you if there were some misconceptions still out there about AI as we move forward that brands need to kind of get past. But it sounds like that would be a big one. Is that
Mhm.
this isn't about replacement. It's about addition to.
Yeah, and
So
I heard this story a while back and I love it. It's such a good example. It's like you have to fall in love with the problem at hand. You can't fall in love with, the technology. And if you look back 100 years ago, the great example to point to is like everyone on, a train or traveling, what would they probably be looking at? A newspaper. What is the equivalent of that today? It's an iPhone, it's a laptop, it's an iPad, but the job of solving boredom is still the same. It's just the technology changed, and it's like that could change again in the future. And it's very much the same with marketing. The job of delivering value to your customers doesn't change. How you go about that as a marketer will change. And the biggest thing, like misconception for AI, um, that I think a lot of brands have today is in order for AI to be effective, in order for it to be useful, it has to plug into all of your data. You need a layer on top that has access to everything. And there's very few technologies out there today that aren't, siloed into like one aspect and sliver of the customer data. What makes High Touch unique compared to like any other marketing platform is we sit on top of all of your data. And that was like an intentional decision made from the founders of the company years ago. And it's like you can't undo tech debt. If you're an Adobe or a Salesforce, you can't just go re-architect your entire platform today. And that's something that makes, yeah, just us unique that a lot of other brands can't facilitate.
gotcha. And as far as that data goes, let's talk about privacy for a minute, which is
Hmm.
obviously a big consideration. And I think we've seen some evolution there. I think it comes in waves actually, where the thought of giving up, personal information, the consumer giving up personal information, is like, oh, I don't feel good about this.
Hmm.
To, all right, as part of the loyalty program, I'm willing to do X, Y, or Z. To maybe coming back around and being, okay, this is too much. Um, where are we right now? How do you guys look at data, particularly as people are trying to create personalized experiences?
Hmm.
Um, is it am I right that it kind of ebbs and flows with consumer, how they're feeling in that particular year?
Yeah, I guess like I get two quick answers to that question. One, high touch, just to clarify, it's like we don't actually have access to data. We sit as a layer on top of companies' existing data infrastructure. So high touch doesn't collect data. We make it easy to use. For the brands specifically, like how to think about data is like I think personally, it's like you can never go wrong like being upfront and honest with the customer. And it's like sometimes that might be a little bit painful, but it's like you see again and again like the brand repercussions of like these things that happen down the line. They have ripple effects for the company of them, exploiting data, security breaches, these sort of things. It's like it's onto the company to maintain those policies, make sure that the data is secure, be honest with how they're using it. Are we selling it for ads? Are we not? What are we doing with it? Um, yeah, does that answer the question? It's
No,
kind
I
of
think
it's
so.
a hard one, and truthfully, I don't think anyone has a great answer still yet today. I think it's an area like the entire data ecosystem needs to improve on.
Yeah, no, no, for sure. And let's talk about return on investment for a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, there's more and more pressure to have a good return on on loyalty programs because they cost money. And I'm curious from your perspective, what methods are being used to justify investments in loyalty programs and doing upgrades to loyalty programs. I would imagine that Hightouch is in a pretty good position to kind of see, is
Mhm.
this working? Is this not working? And what is your advice to your clients on that?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two layers to this question. One is you have to balance, obviously, short-term KPIs with long-term KPIs. And the main one for a lot of loyalty programs is trying to figure out what are the core behaviors that actually impact customer lifetime value, meaning this customer is going to spend more with us than they otherwise would have. Um, and those are different for every single industry, but there tends to every single company tends to kind of know what those are. And I just published a post on this last week where I was talking about Jersey Mike's, large sandwich chain. Um, One of the things for restaurants specifically is frequency. Frequency, like meaning how many times is the customer purchasing with us throughout the week, throughout the month. That is oftentimes like the biggest indicator of their lifetime value long term. So it's like, okay, if I can figure out how to get the customer in the store more frequently, that's going to solve my LTV problem long term. Now, obviously, it's like you have to be able to balance eating that cost up front a little bit to recover the LTV. But it's the thing you have to be looking at a brand as a brand is like, what are these core behaviors that actually impact the needles that I want to drive? So, like, if you're a streaming platform, there's probably like a specific watch time or logging into the app, those recurring things to where it's just brainless for the customer to think about it. It becomes a habit in their life and so routine because you as the customer are receiving so much value for it. And I'm sure there's brands that come to mind for you that they just feel like part of your life, like you could not operate it without it. And I think that is what every company is trying to do with a loyalty program. Getting there is a different question.
Yeah, I won't say which one, but you're 100% right, and it's back to the coffee companies. It's one of those for sure, for sure. Well, hey, let's kind of in our wrap up here, let's talk about the future. Um, are there some, based on everything we've talked about, what are the things that you see for loyalty in 2026 and beyond? Where are things going? Are there some things, maybe besides personalization, besides gamification, which we've been talking
Mhm.
about for a while? Are there some sort of really new things that maybe aren't, maybe they're all in beta right now, so to speak, but what's coming next? What are the innovations?
Yeah, I think one, you're going to see a continued heavy investment in lifecycle programs. It's like when people even think of lifecycle and loyalty programs today, they often think of, email marketing. And lifecycle marketing is now like the backbone of businesses because it covers the full gamut. Um, but I think the big one that you're going to see is companies continuing to invest in their first party data to create moat-like experiences. Meaning, like, what is something that we can do that no other brand can replicate? And a great example of this is streaming platforms. You look at the world, how it's changed from um, cable to now just like streaming taking over. And you have like a couple of big players. You've got Netflix and Disney, and my mind's blanking on the other ones. But the thing that's kind of cool is like Netflix can orchestrate all of their personalization around also all of the value that they offer. The library that Netflix offers is very different than the library that Disney offers, and vice versa. And I think that is what you're going to see companies betting more on is tying their loyalty programs into the core product and value that they are offering to begin with, so that it's not also just the gamification and the rewards, but it's the gamification, the rewards, the loyalty tied into their specific product and value that company X can't replicate. And the only way to do that is with data. And you see this, almost what's the word? Gold rush of, trying to leverage and activate all of it and trying to figure out how to use AI safely on top of it. And the companies
Gotcha.
that get there first are gonna reap the benefits.
Yeah. And what about some things that, we've been doing that you're like, nope, that's got to go. We've moved on from these things. Nobody should ever do these things again.
Oh, I'm trying to think.
And if you can't think of any, that's
No,
okay.
I think one comes to mind is there's this sometimes gets like a bad connotation in life cycle, but this idea of like batch and blast of like, okay, we have a campaign and leadership wants us to drive this much sales this week, and it's like, okay, you just get your whole list and you send something out to them. Um, One of the things that we're really interested in exploring here at Hightouch and already working with a lot of customers with today is like, okay, how do we move away from batch and blast, treating each individual as like an audience? So, just imagine you have an audience of cart abandoners. You think about what an audience is an audience is made up of one-to-one people. So there's an audience of cart abandoners who all abandon for different reasons. It's like, how do we send something personable, relatable, and value-oriented to each of those one persons, not to an entire audience? And the only way to be able to do that is with really sophisticated technology. A lot of AI, a lot of machine learning. And we've been really excited just so like in some of the pilot use cases we've done here at Hightouch, like real companies using it. There's a company called Whoop, a large fitness tracker brand, of being able to get to that true one-to-one personalization. What I mean is a email or message that's crafted specifically for Luke, an email or message that's crafted specifically for AJ based on everything you know about the customer. So shifting away from an audience-based approach to a one-to-one approach where an AI is understanding, the context of a customer and then crafting the message based on the outcomes that you want to drive as a marketer. And then you layer on top of that all of the historical data you know about your customers, and suddenly it's like you're getting to these really wild experiences, and then you're uncovering these insights that never would have been possible before because instead of learning on an audience level, you're learning on an individual level, and then you're feeding those insights back into the system with the system self-improving to make decisions on the next person. And it's more valuable for the business and it's more valuable for the customer. And it's like those two things, it's like when they overlap, that's where great companies emerge. Like,
Let me ask you a question about that specifically, the the execution of that one-to-one thing for a minute.
mhm.
So it would be one thing. Let's go back a step and say, um, all right, based on a group of people who took an action, a group of consumers took an action, my AI tells me, all right, your message to them should be X, and we'll blast that out or whatever the case is, something like that. As the marketer in charge of, we'll say, go back to your agent example of that agent who made that decision, I can review that,
Yeah.
say, yes, I agree with that, and send it out. So there's a safety check there. How do you do that when each of the messages to a million people on your list or whatever the case
Yeah.
is, thousands of
Great
people,
question. I love
how
this
do you
question.
how do you check that to make sure that every single one of those is okay with me as the guy in charge of that
Hmm.
marketing?
Yeah, so specifically for the technology we're talking about, we call it AI decisioning here at High Touch. And one of the things I love about it is you have what we call them black box systems, in that you can't see how the technology works. Nobody likes that. That's a horrible idea. We want to understand how the technology works, why the decisions are being made, how they're being made, who they're being applied to, all of that. And one of the things I love about High Touch is everything is, very much an open box. So for this specific technology, you can click into any record of a customer, who you're sending it to see exactly why the engine made the decision that it did. So there's obviously, we call it kind of like the cold start problem of like when you launch this thing, you obviously, it's like you have to start trusting it. So it's like you do it very smallly, safely, pilot use case, same way we implement all technology. But at some point, it's like once this thing has been working and you see that it's working the way you intended, it's not suddenly going to derail and go off the course. So it's like you as a marketer, you set the guardrails for things that you want to do. So that even means, the volume, the making sure that it doesn't, send this type of message, when a customer completes this action. All of these guardrails that you can control as a marketing team to make sure that the system is operating within the parameters that you've defined and it's not like making decisions outside of it. Really, what it's doing is it's making more decisions for you that you wouldn't be able to make as a marketer. So you're still very much like in the weeds controlling it. It's never a black box, just like, you pull this lever and suddenly I have no idea what's happening. The marketers are very much in the weeds looking at this every day, the folks using it.
No, it's fascinating stuff. It really is, and again, it presents some really interesting sort of problems to think through like that. No, really interesting. So let me wrap up. Last but not least, if a client came to you and said, "Hey, we really feel like we're not hitting on all cylinders with our loyalty program. We feel like we're behind, but we're having a hard time pinpointing like what our issue is." Where would you start as their consultant? Where would you start to look? I bet you're going to say data.
Yeah, well, funny, I used to be a consultant. I used to work for a consulting firm before Hightouch, and we helped with this type of stuff. So I come from a consulting background, but I think we even have to take a step back further than that. It's like, hey, what is the problem the loyalty program is trying to solve? And then once we understand we're aligned on the business outcome we're trying to get to, okay, what do quick wins look like that we can do to solve that problem? Maybe it's not related to the loyalty program. Maybe it's actually a data problem in that, our marketing teams, can't build audiences fast enough to launch new ads, to launch new campaigns. And that is what's, causing the loyalty program to fail. So trying to like actually get crystal clear on what the problem is. A lot of times it's a data problem. Maybe it is, our journeys and everything is like too complicated. So like how can we simplify that way down to get to the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, First principles, applying kind of that first principle mindset of, not letting scope creep in and simplifying things as much as possible to get to the same outcome, being able to let go of some things over here so we can solve this problem, and then prioritizing those in the order that's going to move the needle the quickest. Um, I think it really comes down to kind of a prioritization and decision-making framework for that specific business. And oftentimes, a lot of those things are directly correlated to data problems.
But not necessarily the first problem.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Luke, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate your being here today. And we look forward to hearing more from Hightouch as we get into 2026.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in to our Leaders in Customer Loyalty podcast series. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Leaders in Customer Loyalty podcast and follow Loyalty 360 on YouTube and LinkedIn. The links are provided below. Please join us every Tuesday for another edition of our Industry Voices podcast.